This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Podcast, Hoots on the Ground with no bullshito. And I am coming to you today with Mr. Josh Kreitler. Did I say that right, Josh?
Yep. Yeah,
Absolutely.
you sure did.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for taking some time to spend with us here today. I am super excited to get to know you a little bit better. I've followed you a lot on LinkedIn. I've followed what you and Jason are doing, and I'm just super excited to introduce you to the Lean Builder Nation. I'd love for you to just take a few moments and just tell us a little bit, who is Josh Kreitler?
All right. First off, just want to say thanks for the invitation. Really excited to get to chat with you today and talk about our industry and some of the cool things some of the folks I get to work with are doing on projects. And again, I'm excited. Happy to be here. My name is Josh Kreitler. I'm a project superintendent for a larger GC, McCarthy Building Companies. I've been in the construction industry for 9 going on 10 years. I did go to college and have a construction management degree. I guess a little bit of background is I had a unique start in the industry. When I first came out of college was in the recession in 2009. So the job opportunities weren't stellar, and somehow fell into an opportunity to do some work in the manufacturing world, and worked for right around 2 years for a machine shop in the aerospace industry, which was pretty interesting. It was a good perspective on things. And what's funny, when I look back on lean, there were some things that I picked up definitely along the way working in that industry and seeing how things work there. Obviously, that's where the birthplace of lean is, in more of a manufacturing setting. Personally, I'm married, got a beautiful wife, 2 awesome daughters, 10 and 7. That's where I spend most of my time outside of work.
That's awesome. I love when folks dive into their personal life. Daughters at 10 and 7, those are like the best ages ever. They're old enough to take care of themselves and entertain themselves, but they're young enough where they're not talking back and rolling their eyes.
No, it's
amazing.
Awesome. They're my world. They are cool people, and it is, like you said, it's really cool to see them come into their own personalities and their own find themselves. So I'm loving it.
What's the biggest challenge with them so far?
The 2 of them getting along. They're the sweetest 2 individuals separately, but man, they're fierce together.
A little internal conflict, huh?
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. But so I did not know you came from the manufacturing background. You said you were in aerospace machine shop. Is that
so? It was a machine shop that did some more complex machining of parts they were sub-tier to Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Learjet. And it wasn't a large shop that produced like hundreds of thousands of the same part. It was more technical type parts, more 5-axis high-speed machining. It was a unique experience. It wasn't mass production. It was a little more, I don't know what you call it, custom or
high mix, low volume. I've heard those words kicked around a little bit.
Yep.
Very cool. What was your role there?
When I started, the guy, he's actually a family friend who came into part ownership of the company and knew I had some estimating pre-construction experience. And so he said, look, I need somebody to help estimate these parts. And so there's some parallels there, and I think you could do it and it'd be great. And I said, sure, why not? It's the best opportunity I got at the moment. And so I started doing that, and it kind of rolled into a planning role that they didn't have at the time. And so I helped do some planning for making parts. And then there was a big transition where they were getting audited for a new specification that they had to adhere to. And I played a big part in rewriting their policies and procedures. Because
ISO
requirements, yep, it was an ISO requirement or update. So we had to go through that and do a bunch of training with all of the employees. So basically worked to rewrite the policies and procedures and retrain everybody, which was a cool experience to get to see that side of things and how that works.
Absolutely. And so now you've been in construction for 10 years, I think you said 9, 10 years, something like that. Looking back on it, what are the parallels? Like, are there things that you pulled from that time in manufacturing that you've taken some of those concepts, strategies, tools, and pulled those into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think that I've always been hyper aware and probably partially from that experience of just time spent. Waste is a big thing. How often are you running those machines? When you're running the machines, you're making money. When you're not making money. So there's a big sensitivity to being prepared, having materials, all the 8 wastes we talk about, making sure you're limiting your travel time, your setup's ready to go, your setup times are as minimal as possible, your materials staged in the right place. We actually started implementing some lean practices that I don't know that it totally clicked to me until later in my career, where we used to have a quality department that you took the part to, and then we started implementing a traveling quality department that would come to the parts. So again, looking at what kind of waste can we cut out. So we're actively doing stuff to improve value and eliminate waste in that facility. And I don't know how much the word lean got thrown around. There was a little bit of talk about it as I grew professionally and developed. I definitely realized a lot of that, and it's hard to not apply that once you see it. It's hard to not walk around a construction site and think the same way, right? Why are you walking all the way across the floor to go get a piece of material? Why, what, we got a lot of waste here we can cut out. I've had that mentality for a long time of how do you do it easier? How do you make your life easier? Just that easy or that simple of a way to think of it. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter.
You made me think of the spaghetti diagram. I'm sure have you heard of that before?
I
Where
haven't.
No, so if you track somebody's movements on the job site, at the end of the day, it's almost if you had tied a piece of spaghetti around their ankle and watched like all the different paths and get up to the work site. Now I got to go to the bathroom, go back to the work site. I forgot my screwdriver. And it's just a spaghetti mess worth of transportation or movement that those folks are having. And not only is that waste where we're not actually producing things, but it's also waste on the human body. And that takes effort and energy. It's taken away from their capacity to be able to install work as well.
Man, you're right on, spot on with that. And a lot of folks just, I've noticed, don't think that way, whether it's an awareness thing or just, but yeah, once you start to understand those wastes and what that looks like, I don't, at least for me, my mind starts turning constantly. Oh, I could do that a little better. Or that seems silly. Or it's like a game, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Who can find the most waste and eliminate it, mitigate it? When I was out on job sites, I would drive my team absolutely crazy because I was forever moving the printer here and let's move where we store the paper. And let's like, even in the job site field office, I'm worried about the steps that I'm taking or who the engineer that's going to the printer the most. Like what it takes 10 minutes to move a printer closer to the engineer who's doing the most submittals or RFIs or printing the most documents. And we may have had 4 or 5 different locations as the job progressed and different people were printing different things. So again, I think that's a huge concept when we're considering like true respect for people.
Totally.
I'm loving the story of your lean journey because it started like lean did in general, right? You started with manufacturing and then you transitioned it into construction. I guess help me understand just what help me understand your lean journey from a construction perspective now. So
Yeah, you'd think that maybe from my experience, I'd slide right over and start implementing stuff right away in construction, but not quite. Coming into construction, I'm new to construction and the industry and how it operates, and new to the dysfunction that is our industry, and just learning from the people around me of how they do it, how I'm being taught to do it, how it seems like I'm supposed to do it. And personally, I still always had a mindset of how can I do this task better, easier, faster. But that was more as a project engineer, my paperwork, my RFIs, my submittals. I wasn't responsible for running a crew, running trade partners, things like that at that point in my career. And so coming up, I was learning from those who were doing that type of work on our projects. And I'm going to be honest, I got to the point in my career where I was being given some scopes of work to run. And the examples that had always been set forth for me were you control it all, you tell everybody what to do, you smack them with their contract when they don't listen, You scream louder, you sleep less. That's how you're going to be the best superintendent out there. That's the example.
The old dictator mentality, huh?
Right. So that's what I saw. And it was like, I guess if I'm going to want to do this, this is what I got to start to get better at. And those types of things were never incredibly comfortable for me. And at that point in my life, I hadn't fully understood my leadership style, my preferences, how I was going to operate. I was just navigating that. But a lot of the examples were, and I started to take on some of that. I'm going to tell you where you got to be, and I'm going to tell you why you have to be there, and that's it. I'm not even going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you because the schedule says so. And if you're not, I'm going to scream at you, and then I'm going to call your boss, and then I'm going to threaten to not pay you, and then I'm going to do all the stuff that is just ridiculous looking back. And at some point in that journey where I was being that guy and thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I want to do this for a career. I don't like being the guy that nobody wants to see. When they show up on the job site, they turn and walk away. I don't want to be that guy. I like people. I like getting to know people. I like being part of a team, building a team. I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my career. And I would say timing couldn't have been better that I started hearing some things about some other folks in our company that were doing this lean stuff. And what is lean? And I started reading a little more, and I was like, man, that sounds really cool. So I called one of the folks who was leading the charge on that, and I started asking some questions. He said, here's the guy to call. They're doing this and this on their job sites. You should give him a call. He'd be happy to show you around, go out to his job, visit it. I did, and they were using Last Planner system. They had visual aids everywhere. They were, instead of a traditional job trailer, it was like a shed building off to the side of this hospital. Pretty good amount of space. But they had so many visual aids up that they built a wall in the middle of the building so they had more wall space to put stuff.
Nice.
It didn't divide any rooms or anything. It was just another wall to put. They had constraint boards, and they were using Scrum to manage their internal team. They had their Last Planner board, floor plans. It was great. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So really, I started talking to these guys and just learning about what they're doing, why they're doing, started reading books, started reading articles. And the timing couldn't have been better because I was rolling into a role where I was going to be the guy managing the trades. I was sliding into that superintendent role. And so I just grabbed every tool I could and started implementing it, started somewhere and started tweaking it, what worked, what didn't, asking for feedback, collaborating when we built our plans with the teams. And it felt right. It felt better than the old way of how I was doing things. And I just ran with it. I loved it. I started to love the teams, the folks that were the trade partners, and the group that we were building to accomplish this goal together, build these plans together, hold each other accountable together. It became fun, enjoyable, exciting, instead of that old way of just being a prick.
Stale and miserable and
Right.
one-sided. Absolutely.
Again, the timing couldn't have been better. I think that was a key to why I've ran with it as much as I have, because it just seems, we talked a little before, it's eye-opening how much opportunity there is to improve things in our industry, the way we do things, that it's just incredible. You're looking around, does anybody else see this? I feel like I could make an amazing career off of fixing all this messed up stuff. Are you guys seeing this? Or I think I found a hidden treasure, but it's not. It's just everywhere. It's like
you've just become so immune to it. It's unbelievable.
It is wild. And that's what Joe Donnarumma and I were talking about. It's like tripping over $100 bills everywhere you go.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. And so that's exciting in itself, right? That's cool. A lot of places, you got to work really hard for pretty small incremental gains because those before you have done so much. And it almost feels like here, like there's so much to gain and grow and improve that it's exciting. It's cool.
Absolutely. I actually posted on LinkedIn not long ago, and I basically said, isn't this awesome that we have so much room for improvement in construction? We can keep ourselves busy all day, every day. And that's, again, why I'm so fascinated with your lean journey, starting in manufacturing and then transitioning into construction, maybe not applying the tools right away, but figuring out, seeing where the tool might be necessary. I heard you mention a few tools already, like Scrum and Last Planner, constraint boards. Which ones are you using on your projects? And I guess which ones have been the most successful for you?
Yeah. So I'll start from, I'm really fortunate on the job I'm on. I'll tell you right now, it's a pretty large lab building in St. Louis, Missouri, and I get to work with a team. So I'm a part of our company's lean core group. We've got an outside or a group that gets together of folks around the company that are interested in these lean practices, and we talk about how we can spread them and where we can implement them, how we can teach people. And so I love that. I'm fortunate enough on the job I'm on to be with two individuals that are also part of that group that are in leadership roles on the project. We all got together and said, this is it. A lot of us who were practicing lean on jobs were doing it on maybe smaller projects. And we never had a good example of a big job, a mega job that was implementing lean practice as well and talking about them. And so we got together and looked at each other and said, this is it. We kept hearing the excuse, yeah, maybe that's great on your $30 million job, but my $500 million, my $800 million job, but you just couldn't do it. It just wouldn't work. But that's cool what you're doing. We love it. And so there was an opportunity for us to get together and say, we're going to do it all. We're going to do everything we can think of, everything that's worked well on other jobs. And from a leadership level, you're supported. We've got buy-in.
Critical.
Go do. And so it was awesome. So I'll run down the list for you.
Yeah, please.
We've implemented tact planning.
Nice.
Tact plan for our job for all of the fit out work. We retroactively worked some of those concepts into our concrete structure that was already going by the time I came to the job. We, in the areas where we're not able to develop that flow on a tact plan, we're using last planar system. So our more complicated mechanical spaces, a central utility plant that's tied to the building, some of our unique lobby space and auditorium space. So we're developing pull plans and managing with a system of meetings, last planar system. We internally are utilizing Scrum for our teams, and we are still navigating and improving our team of teams, Scrum of Scrums. So we have functional teams that have smaller teams that manage with the Scrum process. We do weekly sprints, and we prioritize and balance our workload for the week and our commitments as a small team. And then as a large team, we all have a once weekly check-in where we reach across the teams for communicate needs and asks and make sure that we're all understand what everybody's focused on and if there's any needs that need to be prioritized across the functional teams. And then we spend a bunch of time on we develop a parking lot of things that need to just be hashed out across teams and spend some time once a week doing that. And that's been going well. That's really developed a lot over this project because that's a hard concept I found to really get right. And we don't have it. It's an ongoing journey to keep improving, but we're getting to where we feel really good about it. And the awareness across, we're a 25, 30 person team. So that's a lot of individuals to keep in the loop and keep priorities in front of and communicate. And we think we're doing a pretty good job. We started with a really cool big room. COVID derailed that and have gone to some more virtual type big rooms using Mural.
Tell me, what was cool about the big room?
We just had we had a great room and a lot of visual aids. That was awesome. And that's where we hashed through our developing our tact plan with the trade partners. And every time we decided something or worked through an item, we printed it, we made a drawing of it, we put it on the wall. So we started talking about building leave outs, paths to get equipment in a leave out through a hallway down to its final resting place. And what we realized is we talked through the same issues 3 and 4 times because nobody was like documenting it. So it was like, what did we say last time? And so we started taking those, and we'd have our roof leave outs, and we'd have our wall, and we'd have dashed lines of how we're getting through the building, and it's all on the wall. We had our crane swing radiuses and capacities. And so you could go into that room, and if you asked a question, you just had to spin a circle and you'd find an answer or something to help you get there. I mean, we had our pull plan boards so we could pull out sequences and such. And our tact plan was on the wall, and it was one side was an entire glass wall. So we put every floor plan on the back side so you could go scribble on all the floor plans. And it's a 12-story building. So there's 12 floor plans wallpaper in the wall. It was great.
Any chance you got some photos you could share with me? Maybe I could toss them up here. I don't know if that's.
I do. I have some photos. Unfortunately, we got asked to move our office. The client is letting us use a space that was vacant of theirs, and it got filled. They got somebody to lease the space, so they sent us to another office, and COVID happened. So our big room started to look a little different. So we've been using some mural boards to put content up on, and that's been working well. That's that virtual versus in person that is been a struggle, but a necessity through COVID, and we're figuring out ways to make it work. And we're seeing some of the positives that I think we were resistant to try originally, where folks can see it from anywhere. Whereas if you're not in the big room, you don't have it in front of you. And that's a big value we've seen.
Yeah, we were just talking about that yesterday on the superintendent's lean coffee, and I very much valued your perspective where everybody was griping and complaining like virtual doesn't work, like we got to be in person. There's some things we just can't do, and you're like, wait a minute, y'all, we got to give it a chance because it's not going away. And so I really value your perspective there and challenging the status quo and trying to adapt to what the future, because you're right, it is coming. And does it really make sense to drive an hour for an hour meeting and then drive an hour back? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I think that's to be determined still.
Yeah, like you said, that's why we're all here in the first place on these in these lean coffees and these conversations. Is we want to challenge the status quo.
Amen.
The truth is, I feel that I like in-person meetings better. I'm not going to say I don't. Like you said, maybe there's an opportunity to improve somewhere and figure those out and how to do them right and where to apply them. And
I'm with you. There's something about being able to look someone in the eye and get that agreement or that condition of satisfaction and knowing that you're on the same page. It's hard to replace that sort of thing.
It is, but it's important too with as many meetings as we have. We talked a lot about the book Death by Meetings and the concept of right meetings and how meaningful that is. What are we trying to accomplish with this meeting? Maybe there are meetings where, hey man, a quick update, that's great virtually. I didn't have to drive all the way across town. I didn't have to try to maybe that's great for that type of meeting, but maybe there's a type of meeting, a strategic meeting where you really do need to sit down face to face and hash something out. And that's what I think we'll figure out as we start to peel back the layers and unpackage that. Is I think it's going to be, where's the right fit? What's the right tool for what we're trying to accomplish?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because we don't want to just start throwing tools at it if we don't need them. We're creating tools to solve problems. So one of the things that I've noticed as I'm starting to coach construction teams and that sort of thing is the tools and everything are great, but the tools don't work unless there's a trust built with the team. If the people, it's all about the people. So what are you doing on the job site to nurture that trust or build that trust and maintain the trust within the team?
Yeah, so that's always been an interesting one to me, the idea of culture and tools.
Oh, you said it.
And culture is key, but so many of these tools are designed to build a culture. You can't use the tool to its highest potential without culture, but these tools help build that culture. So they're all intertwined or woven in each other if you do it right. If you facilitate a process correctly, in my opinion, you're building that culture. And as you build that culture, you can really optimize the use of that tool. So it's like a self-fulfilling type thing. And I think it starts from day one when we talk about these plans. We talk about planning before we're even on the job and we're sitting in rooms together. It's the respect, showing the respect to our trades and involving them in the plan, not building it in a silo and saying, here, guys, here's the plan, go do. It's, hey, Steve, the electrician, man, you've been doing this for more years than I've been alive. If you could have this job and do it any way you want, how would you do it? Let's start there. Enlighten me on the challenges you have, where you can really thrive. Explain to me and the team. And you start to hear that and you are, that's awesome. If we can get there, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to listen to that. We're going to talk about everybody in that same sense. And then we're going to find the right happy medium where we hear and we understand each other and where we're going to be our best and where we're really going to struggle. and we're going to collectively agree to what's right for the whole job, the entire project. And we're going to give a little and we're going to gain a little. And I think just having those conversations, asking, you say it all the time, I think my most valuable tool is asking questions. That's how I've gotten. I told you, I did not come up through the trades. I went to college, coming out on a construction site as a young 20-something-year-old, trying to tell 50-year-olds how to do their job is not only intimidating, but it's stupid. So I learned real quick, if I'm going to accomplish anything, I need to build relationships. I need to ask questions. I need to understand, why are you doing what you do? Why are you doing it this way? Why not this way? Okay, I get it. Help me understand. That's the phrase that I use more times in a day than I can count. Help me understand why we're doing it this way. Okay, great. How can I help make sure that we keep getting you what you need? All that. And I remember being a young assistant superintendent and being tasked with all the MEP trades on a pretty good sized hospital patient tower build. And I was like, what does MEP even stand for? But we got it. We're going to figure it out. And so our electrical foreman became one of my closer friends on that project. And I would go to him and I'd be like, all right, here's the deal. If you were to be told that the owner's going to move all this stuff around, what would you do? Right? Okay, so the owner told us we're going to move all this stuff around. And we would just talk through it, and I'd pick his brain, and I'd get a feel for like, all right, man, I know a little bit about this, but not that. Tell me about this piece of equipment. What do you need how's it work? What's the process of putting it together, getting it started, being able to utilize it, all that stuff. I mean, that's one of my biggest tools is building those relationships and learning from the guys they're the subject matter experts. That's what they have done and dedicated their lives to doing, and they know it, and they're passionate and proud of it. Rightfully so. But going back to what we're doing on our project, we're engaging all of the trade partners in our planning. We're asking their opinions. We are doing our best to create a environment for all of the folks working on the project so that they want to come to work every day, and then this is a project they want to tell their friends about. Hey man, I'm on a really cool project. We've done a few things. If you're standing on a floor, you should only have to go up one or down one to get to a bathroom with a flushing toilet.
Nice.
12-story building. We got sinks to wash hands. We've added ice makers. So we have a shelf. We're lucky that we have a shelf floor in about the middle of the building. And we dedicated that space to a communal break area, sinks, ice maker, bathrooms with flushing toilets. We have a conference room up there. We've built numerous smaller job-built temporary offices and given the opportunity to foremen that want to occupy them to have a space right there next to their guys to keep their plans, their computers, whatever. So things like that we're trying to do. And when you talk about our industry and where we're heading and the fear of quality manpower, people who want to do this type of work, who are good, hardworking individuals, how do we get people to want to come into this industry? You've heard it 1,000 times and you've said it plenty. It's who wants to come to work in knee-deep mud to get to the front door and go to the bathroom in a cold porta potty that hasn't been emptied and not have any toilet paper. When you got people at jobs who are going down slides to get from floor to floor and can work from home whenever they want and have as much vacation as they want, where do you think the top talent in our world is going to go? We got to make it more desirable. We do cool stuff, like really cool stuff. But if you got to fight through all that other BS, it's going to turn away some of those folks that are really intelligent and really capable. And I think that's a big thing that we need to change.
Absolutely. It's just not worth it. Did you say you're sliding from floor to floor, like playground slide?
Like Google, right? They got all that type of stuff.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right?
Absolutely.
All
That's a heck
the
of an
software
idea.
companies do all that. Come to work in a ball pit or something.
Yeah, Dabo's got one in his world down here at Clemson, the football operations building. They got slide. It's much leaner than
There you
going
go.
down the stairs. Less effort, less energy, fun.
So, yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can. We constantly ask for feedback. I only got halfway through the tools we're using, but
Oh, keep going.
daily huddles are a huge part of what we're doing. And we've got, like I said, a fairly large project. So we've got them broken down into more intimate huddles that apply to the building or the area. And so we got the right foreman and the right conversation, and we're constantly asking feedback. Is this working? Is it not? What do we need to change? What just pushing the conversation, the feedback as to what can we do better, whether it's that or we still have a core superintendent team meeting once a week where a lot of the conversation, is it working, is it not? Do we need to revisit something? Do we need to replan it? What are you hearing from your guys? Are guys feeling safe? Are they feeling frustrated? Are they feeling, tell us, let us know. And then we talk about visual communication. There's visual aids galore on our job site when it comes to our huddles and planning boards and everything else. So a ton of visuals. That's a big piece. Constraint management. One thing new for me on this job, we had typically done constraint boards or logs. We just write the line across of what the issue is, who owns it, when it's due by, etc. We actually start tracking those on floor plans. So what we're finding is visually, if somebody sees, they know an issue's out there, but the minute they see like where that issue is and where they're supposed to be next week, all of a sudden it's, oh, wait a sec, that really is a problem for me. And so it's more that visual cue again, like, all right, this is here. Let me know when you see a problem. Before, when it's just a line up there, it's great, we're tracking it, and it's better than what we were doing before. But now it forces a little more so, oh, wait a second, that's a problem for me. And that wasn't who we were even talking to start with. And so it brings it more to the surface, and it identifies them right where they are on the floor plan, the same floor plan we're talking about, where you're working, where you're staging material, where you're doing everything. And so that's been a good improvement we made as far as tracking our constraints. And that constraint management concept is, it goes on that list, but we really look at it holistically from our high level planning. We should be pulling out as many constraints as possible. Then when we get to our look ahead conversations, we should be pulling out constraints from 6 weeks ahead. And then when we look at our make ready, we should be pulling out constraints from the day before. And then really at our huddles should be like the, oh shoot, like major showstopper. So we should have minimized all the roadblocks or constraints gradually as we get there by keeping our head up and looking ahead and having those conversations as we get closer to putting the work in place. I talked about Scrum a little. We internally have had a great success with that, and a ton of success with our engineers and ASUPs, really helpful in helping them prioritize their tasks and balance the workload. Because I found on a lot of jobs, you got an engineer who's working his butt off with so much that he's drowning, and you got another one over here who's got nothing to do. And it's just because somebody said, you're responsible for this and you're responsible for that. And we weren't checking in. And this allows us to say, look, I know you're the lead on drywall, but you've got 3 inspections and a mock-up this week. What can I take over here? Because I'm pretty light. And that's the conversation that happens on a weekly basis, which is really cool to see and really helps with that balance of our teams where somebody's not just getting buried. Got a cool application using Scrum on a planning board a few weeks back. We, due to our schedule, we resequenced how we're going to attack the penthouse of our building, which sits on the roof, and we're going to load all our we are in the middle of loading all our big equipment up before we build the structural steel that goes around it and enclose it. So we're going to save a bunch of time not having to feed that stuff through a little hole piece by piece. And so we made that decision a while back. And as we got to, all right, how do we want to manage this? When do we want to do our huddles? How do we want to do our huddles? We actually took a sheet metal contractor and pipe fitter contractor, the 2 key contractors setting all the heat recovery units, air handlers up on this penthouse floor. And we built a board for our daily huddle. And we decided we're going to get sheet metal contractor. I'm going to bend a board with a little tray out of sheet metal, and we're going to use that. We're going to get a magnet for every single pick we're going to make. And we're going to make a backlog of picks, and we're going to make a to-do for the next 3 days of picks. And we're going to have a floor plan where we actually put the magnet where that piece is when you land it on the roof. And what it is, it was the Scrum process, but it left us enough flexibility because we're using our tower cranes, which are also finishing concrete work, putting a skin on the building, working on miscellaneous roofs, supporting our parking garage that's happening. So a real critical resource that requires a lot of flexibility, weather dependent, heat. We were hitting 100+ degree temperatures. When you're up that high, the wind wins out the cranes fairly often. We had to be flexible, and we didn't want to have a rigid plan. So we were doing by the day, piece by piece, making decisions, pivoting, switching what made sense, which of the two cranes we could use based on the needs everywhere else. So by maintaining that flexibility, we had a 2-week window where that activity was critical path, and we nailed it in 100+ degree heat and with all these other challenges. And I really think it's because we went to that process where there was a little more flexibility on the fly to say, all right. And we would stand there in our daily huddle and we plan the next day. And then we walk into the tower crane meeting where we scheduled and coordinated that work. And we tell the team this is what we need. And we everybody fill in the gaps around it, and we go and we do it again that day. So we had that good one piece flow, had that flexibility where we knew the backlog was, but we weren't forcing ourselves into a linear schedule somewhere. And that was one of the cooler applications of Scrum that I've had recently that was a little more non-traditional.
What I love the most about that is you took just an average tool that a lot of people know about, but you tweaked it, you customized it for your application, for the job, for the process that you were putting in. And so I think a lot of times, at least when I first started implementing the last planner system, and I use that word implementing intentionally, it failed miserably because I was by the book. You've got to put the manpower, you got to have the predecessor, like you've got to do the post-it note this way or it won't work. And so we were a little bit over technical and not so much agile. These days, I much prefer to use the term creating a tool for the project where, hey, what does the job need? And you clearly saw a need and you say, hey, we've got this framework of Scrum. How can we take and modify that? And I'm a huge fan of using maps. And like you mentioned, the roadblock maps, or if you're just showing where the pick is going or where that piece of equipment is going, the human mind sees pictures a lot better and it adds so much more context to where you're going to be working and what the requirements are to get there. I think that's genius. That, oh my goodness.
It was fun. And we got our sheet, like I said, our sheet metal contractor went out and bought, he went to 3 stores. He bought every magnet these 3 stores had, like Office Depot or something.
Yeah.
And he, in his shop, had a tray built, like he bent a flat piece of sheet metal with a tray to put everything in. He was loving it. And so
a lot of equipment.
when we started it, he was like, this is so simple, but so cool and is working so well. He actually dragged 2 other project managers from their company over and he goes, I want you to watch this. I want you to do this on all your other jobs.
I was just about to ask if that would be carried forward.
Oh yeah. And they stood there and they were like, you're just putting a magnet where it goes. This is like elementary, man. And he's like, I know, isn't it?
Ding,
But it's so great. It works so well. It communicates the plan. It allows us to be flexible. We're not putting ourselves in a box in our head. It's great. And it's just fun to watch. Fun to watch something like that that's real simple, but helps everybody. And people get excited about it.
I've seen similar instances, clearly not on multi-$100 million projects, but where there'll be a magnet for each person on the project site too. And so then you're able to know where they're working and you can go in there and you can count the people. Do we have the right people in the right place? And so I've seen some of that, but never with equipment, never with mobilization of equipment. I think that's amazing. I really like that. So let me switch it up on you here a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit more about you and who Josh is. What is your favorite project or the project that you're most proud of and why?
Oh man, I'm pretty proud of the one I'm on right now because I told you the opportunities that I'm afforded here and the team that's behind me or making it happen out here. So if you ask me in a year, it'll probably be this one. If we're talking past projects, it's when I really got to run the show. I was just the lead superintendent on the project. It was for a client that we've worked with before and hired who trusts us and likes us. And it's when I really started implementing Last Planner system. And I had a good group of foremen who we got really close. And it was one of those stories where everybody's resistant. They said, no, it's never going to work. I'm not doing that. Their managers were calling saying, hey, what is this? We're not doing, that's not what we signed up for. That's not our contract. And I got all the foremen together and I was like, look, let's forget the noise around us. Let me explain what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. And everybody got the buy-in from a core group and we just started doing it. We had a trailer that was right like 5 steps from the front door. So we would do our huddles in the trailer. We'd do our pull plans in the trailer. We had a pull plan board that wrapped the whole conference room of the trailer all the way around. And it was a slow go to get it going, but everybody really, because of the tools, but also we got pretty lucky. Everybody saw value pretty quickly. Like they saw that we were making work available in front of them and they could start and keep going. We saw that we had an opportunity to face talk through problems instead of funneling everything through the superintendent. Framer telling me that the electrician did something he didn't like, and then I got to go to the electrician, and then I go back to the friend, and it's like, what are we doing here?
A lot of work on you.
You know, we sat there and we hashed it out at the table. And what was really cool to me on that project is there were some young foremen who really wanted to prove themselves in their own company. So they latched on and said, look, this makes sense. This is an opportunity for me to show that I can handle this. There was a guy who was like, had an agreement that if this job went well, he was getting his company truck. We had guys that were ambitious and wanted to do well and were open-minded, and it went really well. Everybody was really happy. As the job went on, our huddles, our Friday morning huddle, I had to kick guys out.
When we
were in the heat of it, it was a good 10, 15 minute. We're hitting on it. We got stuff to do. All right, cool, let's go. And as it started to come down, it was like, guys, I got to go to work. Don't you have anything to do? And they're like, oh, no, man, it's taken care of. We're good. Like, this job's going great. And that was just super cool. And they were talking about kids' baseball games, hunting, whatever, for an hour or more at our huddle by the end of that job. And it was because everything was so smooth and operating like a well-oiled machine, because all the good planning, all the good conversation, all the good relationships, that it was awesome. And one of those foremen is on this job with me now. And he told his boss, he got asked to do this job, and he's like, no way, man, that is too nasty, too big. I don't want that headache. I'm happy where I'm at. And I don't know, somehow it came around. Josh was running that job. Josh asked for it, and he goes, all right, I'll do it.
Nice.
And to have him say that, like, he was like, I don't want this headache. It's a bigger job than he's ever done. It's a bigger job than I've ever done. It's intimidating. He knows how these jobs can go. He's been on them. He's grinded through them. And for him to hear that, hey, I'm out there and we're gonna do this again, and we're gonna do it, and for him to be like, all right, deal, it was pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
That all came from that project where we all just bonded together and helped each other out the whole way, and we killed it. We did a great job. I think everybody made good money. It was good.
Like, yeah, that's that trust component. When you start knowing people on a different level, when you start asking questions, not just about work, but about that person, that opens up a whole new level of trust, and you end up developing relationships where you'll just run through brick walls for one another. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about right now. Man, you got me fired up. I want to come see the job. I'm about to go hop on an airplane and come to St. Louis.
Come on,
I'm a huge
man.
Cardinals fan too, so it just makes sense.
Heck yeah.
But so another question for you here. You mentioned Death by Meeting earlier. I'm curious, you said you're a reader. What are 2 or 3 books that you feel like every person in our industry should have to read?
Ooh, that's a good one. So depending on what you do and where you're at, I'd probably have a few different recommendations. I'll tell you from a superintendent standpoint, I really think the stuff Jason Schroeder's doing is really cool.
Yeah,
there's nothing out there from a literature standpoint or anything that really tells you can get all kinds of great leadership books, and there are great ones out there, and I could give you a laundry list of good leadership books, but they don't talk specific about an industry, or especially our industry. And Jason's got one out there. If you're a superintendent just getting started and trying to understand what that looks like, what your day should look like, what your role should look like, his Elevating, man, I can't remember the name of it.
Elevating Superintendents, I think it is, right?
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's something that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And he filled that void. I think one of the lean ones that was more impactful, or like one of those kind of eye-opening, once you see it, you can't unsee it, was The Goal.
Yeah, Eliuhad Goldratt.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's another one of those, like, once you understand waste and you start seeing it, you can't stop. And once you understand that theory of constraints, and you can't look at things a different way.
Yep.
And so that
Bottlenecks.
was a pretty cool one to end my lean journey.
Have you read the sequel to that book called It's Not Luck?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, it's
I'm gonna write that
fantastic.
down right now.
It's so Alex Rogo is the main character in the goal, and after I don't want to give the book away, but he does this thing with the local plant, then they move him up into the corporate office, and so this is his journey up through the corporate office, and it is fantastic. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas LeMay or Jesse Hernandez.
I have I've heard Jesse's name and seen him in various things in the industry. I haven't heard Thomas.
So Thomas, he works for DPR. Those two right now are doing a collabo session right now, is what they call it, solely based on the goal. And I can imagine there's going to be some amazing content that comes out of that. But that was actually the first book that I got into and really sparked my lean journey and helped me to understand the concept of bottlenecks.
Yeah, that's totally. And once again, it's one of those. Once you see it, you're like, "How have I not? Why isn't everyone not see this?"
Yeah.
Holy cow!
$100, $100.
Yeah, totally. And I love that. For me, the Toyota Way was the one that brought, because having a little manufacturing background, lean coming from manufacturing, when you hear in our industry these tools and what we're trying to do, that brought it all together. Like, here's the base concept, and now over here is how we're trying to put it in place in construction. Like you said, where you get hung up on the rules. Over here, somebody's teaching last planner, and there's these rules. Once I read that book, it's now I know the why. So I know which rules I can flex on, because I know that I'm trying to do this as the end goal or the end concept. So I can flex here, but I got to keep my eye on this. And that one kind of brought the concepts, married the concepts from where they originated to what we're trying to do in the construction industry and why.
Absolutely. Word on the street, Mr. Schroeder has another superintendent book, a book dedicated to senior superintendents coming out here, hopefully in the next month or two. I'm pretty excited to pick that one up and read that as well.
Yeah, he's doing some cool stuff. I've gotten to know Jason pretty well over the last.
The guy's an animal. I often worry about his own self-care. Jason, I know you're listening to this. You better take care of yourself. Put your oxygen mask on before you help anybody else, because we need you, my brother.
Yeah. No, it's exciting to see his energy and drive to improve this industry.
Absolutely. So I've asked this question to several of the folks that come on the show because I've got a couple of words and phrases. One of them you dropped earlier, the word culture. I just can't stand that word because everybody's got just this different view on what that means, and they're all right. And so I'm curious, are there any words or phrases or anything like that just bug you or annoy you?
I'm sure you've heard this one before. That's the way we've always done
Yep. I hear it almost every day, actually.
it. Yeah, that one makes me twitch a little.
Yeah. Why? What
It's
is it?
just it's a little bit of that closed-minded. Okay, great. Why? So we should keep doing it. It's just one of those. I want to say, do you hear yourself? Do you really think then we should? We can learn from what we've done, and maybe there's some good in it. But just saying no to something because we've done it that way for 20 years. Look at everything else that's changed around you in 20 years.
Amen. I heard the best response to that, and I can't remember. I want to say it was Jen Lacey that threw the response out there. And when she heard those words, she said, "Take out your cell phone. Let me see your cell phone." The person was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she like grabbed the cell phone and she like held it and she said, "Did you ever have a flip phone at one time? Why don't you have a flip phone anymore?" And so clearly, we're able to, as we evolve technology, we got to use technology to our advantage. And then the other story that I love, and I'm not sure if you've heard this one, I'd love to hear from your perspective, but slicing the end of the ham off to fit in the pan. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Let's hear it from your perspective, because I don't know that all of our listeners have heard that. I would love to have you dive into that story.
Yeah, so let me remember how it goes. Making Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, and it's a daughter and her mom. And I think daughter's ready to start taking over and learning how to make Thanksgiving dinner for her family. She's coming of age. She's got a family now. So she's, Mom, can I watch you? Can I help you? I want to learn. I want to make Thanksgiving dinner and be able to carry this tradition.
Yep.
And so Mom says, yeah. And she takes them. They're getting the ham ready to put it in the oven and cook it. And she cuts off one end of the ham and throws it in the trash. And goes ahead and puts it in the pan and puts it in the oven and cooks it. And daughter goes, Mom, why'd you cut the end off the ham and just throw it away? It seems like that's good food. Is there something wrong with it?" And she goes,
$100 bills.
"Yeah." She goes, "No, that's the way Grandma taught me." And your grandma's in the other room because it's Thanksgiving. She goes, "Why though?" She goes, "I don't know. Let's go ask her." They go to Grandma and they ask her, and she goes, "I don't know. That's the way Great Grandma taught me." And they're lucky. Great Grandma's still alive. She's sitting in the recliner just across the room. And, "Great Grandma, why did you cut the end off the ham before you put it in the oven?" And she goes, "Back in my day, we only had this one square pan, and to fit it in, I had to cut off the end so it fit in the pan so I could fit it in the oven." And so they all looked at each other and were like, "We've been throwing away the end of every ham for every Thanksgiving and Christmas for the last 40 years. And that's a perfect example, like you said.
Absolutely.
Like, why are we doing it that way? Does anybody know? Did you ask? Did we figure it out?
I'm so happy you told that story because you told it way better than I would have. I would have butchered it like the ham that got thrown in the trash. Man, that's funny. We've been throwing the hams away for so long. So let's transition, switch gears because we're running out of time here. Would love to just hear you shout out some people either on your current job or folks that have made a difference throughout your career. Who are those people? Let's celebrate them.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the conversation that I'm really fortunate to have some of the folks on this job in more of a leadership role that have given me the opportunity to go try all this stuff on a big job. And I think it took a lot of trust from them and a lot of belief in these practices and these concepts and ultimately in me, which is really awesome. Two of those folks that have been there and supported me are my project director, Andy Perot, and project manager, Matt Sauer. And Matt's the guy who I mentioned early on who started my lean journey with the company where somebody told me to call Matt and go see his job. And that was that job in Middle Illinois where they were running out of wall space from all the cool stuff they had on the wall. So he's
build the extra wall. Yeah.
Yep. He's been one that's been there to bounce ideas off and come up with stuff and implement stuff for a long time. So that's been awesome. And then just some of the members of my team out here, got a superintendent that I'm working with who I think some of these concepts were new to him to put a name on it, but he'd been doing stuff like that for years. A guy by the name of Ben Williams, who is just going to kill it in his career. And he is embodied. He's got some of the best daily huddles I've seen.
Oh, cool.
He has taken it and ran with it and done some really cool stuff and built some killer relationships. And at this point, we've got projects from around our area who are calling him to schedule time to come watch his huddles. He is the example, and it's pretty cool.
That's
so, yeah, probably one of the biggest shout outs I want to give, and somebody who's impacted me on my journey. And I probably should have gone into more detail when we were talking earlier, but I went down the rabbit hole on a few other things.
Love those rabbits.
Felipe Engineer Manriquez, he was right there at the beginning of my journey and helping me get started, helping introduce me to all the awesome individuals in this industry. He's supported me since the beginning, so I really can't talk about my journey without mentioning Felipe. He's been there for me since day one. He helped facilitate my very first pull plan a few years back, and ever since has been just helping me where he can along the ways. He's an awesome guy. He's awesome for this industry. I mentioned a ton of stuff we're doing related to Scrum out there. And in all honesty, anybody who's using Scrum in this industry, it probably all goes back to Felipe. He really is a pioneer in bringing that agile concept to the construction industry. He's got an awesome book out there. He's got a podcast I highly recommend with some awesome guests. So big shout out to Felipe.
And the book you're talking is Construction Scrum, and that podcast is the EBFC show. And the reason I know that is because one, I tune in all the time, but two, I also just had him on a podcast like 2 or 3 before this. And yeah, super shout out Felipe. Claim to fame there as well. I'm so honored to know Felipe. And to be honest with you, Josh, I've sat on his couch a few times and he's talked me through some really tough situations. So yeah, huge.
He's an awesome guy, man. He's an awesome guy. I got my Scrum Master certification through him and the work he does with Scrum Inc. So another thing that just helping the industry advance. So big shout out.
And you can do that Scrum training online now. He has recorded the whole thing. And before you take the test, it's hey, get with him and ask any questions. But yeah, that's available at the ebfcshow.com.
Yeah. A couple other folks, just a big shout out to the company I'm working for. McCarthy people have always been really supportive of what I'm doing on my jobs. The leadership team there has supported the change that I'm trying to implement along the way. And so I feel real supported by those folks. A few specifics that I'm working with on this project. I mentioned I'm really excited about how they've given me the free rein to try all these new things on a pretty big and impactful project for my current project director, Andy Perot, project manager, Matt Sauer. Matt's the individual whose job I visited way back when with all the visual aids and pull plans on the wall, who really got me started and has been a supporter ever since. A couple other folks in the company doing big things. Nate Elting, another superintendent whose jobs are spectacular. If you go visit those, they'll be the cleanest, best run jobs that I've walked.
I'll take you up on that now.
Yeah. No, he's good people, man, doing good things. Current job I'm on, another peer superintendent doing awesome things, taking what we're doing and just running with them. I could spend probably the next 20, 30 minutes listing names, but I'll just shout out a few individuals who have really bought in and helped sell to the rest of the folks on this job and are a big part of why we're doing so well and able to implement the things we're doing. So just a couple shout outs: Ron Rogers, Joe Wilmes, Corey Snow, some true leaders in their disciplines and in their companies. I love it. I wouldn't be where I'm at without everybody I mentioned, plus 100 other. And that's what's so cool about this community. Everybody just wants to help make each other. Everybody wants to see everybody improve out there, whether you work for a competing company or not. And it's just a really neat community to be part of and to feel supported by.
I love the way you shout people out, man. That's what it's about. And honestly, that's what true leaders do. True leaders don't ever shout themselves out. In fact, they take all the blame and none of the credit, and they raise everybody else around them, right? They say, what do they say? All ships rise with the water, or how does that
I
saying
can never
go?
get it right. All ships rise with the rising tide, but I feel like I
There you
said
go.
rise too many times. But that's the idea, right?
That's right. Yeah,
I
water and
truly feel that way, and I think our community does, and that is allowing these concepts to spread. It's not trying to keep the next best thing close to our vest and not share it. It's about, hey, man, if we got to get together to improve this industry together, and we're all going to benefit from it. It's an amazing community, and I'm blessed to be invited to things like this. I appreciate you inviting me here, Joe Damarumo hooking me up with you. Just everybody that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I got a whole list of the team that we got out here that I could go on and on about. And I won't list everybody's name, but I really appreciate everybody's buy-in, everybody's trust, everybody's open-mindedness, because it takes that open-mindedness and willingness to try something new and try something different. And I think I always worry that people will get tired of me because I'll throw something out there, we'll try it, and then I'll go, I didn't like that, let's change it. And I think, I feel like it might drive some people crazy because it's like, can we just stay with one thing for a minute until we get it right? And it's like, no, that didn't work. We're going to try this now. Next week it's this. And so I can be a little, it's not totally a squirrel, but it's tried it, see what works, what didn't, let's go to the next, let's not spin our wheels. If it's not giving us value, let's do something different. And for everybody to kind of not exile me, I appreciate it. And it's been awesome. It's a killer team out here.
Yeah, experimentation is everything, right? We got to try different things in order to get different results. And I think that's kind of those crossroads that our industry as a whole is at right now. Who's going to be the first company to really pick up tax planning and drive that? And how are we going to make that a standard throughout all general contractors? Because there's something huge there. The CPM practices, and I won't dive off that cliff, but we don't manage schedules well with CPM. They encourage bad habits, and let's experiment. Let's do some different things. I mentioned high mix, low volume earlier. There's some folks out on LinkedIn that swear by finite capacity resource scheduling. And so I think there could be something there. But again, we got to take baby steps to get into that until we can actually recognize what resources do we have? What are their capabilities to be able to schedule to them?
And the last shout out I'll give, and probably the most important, is the folks putting the work in place.
Amen.
And their buy-in to these processes. Some of that's probably a little scary. They've never seen it before. They're taking a leap of faith to do this TAC plan with me that we've got in place. It's different. And for them to buy in and the support that I've gotten with them, it's been a cool transition from a core group of folks that I had to convince, but they weren't outwardly against it, but needed some proof. Show me. And built that trust, and my team built that trust. And we got a core group who really believed that this is the right way and we're going to be able to build it this way. And as members come on board for new scopes of work and their initial response of that's not how we build, we're not doing it that way, we can't do that. And a whole group of people standing behind me says, yeah, you are.
You will.
Yeah, you are. I can tell you why, but you are. Don't worry. And to have that buy-in has been awesome, and it's been really cool. And the men and women putting the work in place and making it happen. So without them, there's nothing.
You do live in Missouri, the show me state.
That's right.
So
You got to convince people, man.
Man, this has been awesome. A ton of fun. I have enjoyed learning from you, and I am going to take you up on that. I am coming to your project site. When is substantial completion?
We got a ways to go next summer, July.
Oh, so I got a year to get out there.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's a 3+ year project. We're poured out, topped out real soon, and we're flying. We're flowing through the fit out.
Ooh, I like how you put that. Amazing. Josh, thank you so much for your time. I, again, just genuinely appreciate your openness, your candidness. You are, without a doubt, a tremendous leader, making change in our industry. And I look forward to serving the industry with you more in the future. Thank you.
I appreciate the kind words, and I really appreciate you inviting me here. This has been an awesome discussion. A lot of fun, man. Thank you.
And it will not be the last one, because that's what lean builders do.
Heck yeah.